Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about a subject that, might be growing in popularity, unfortunately, about bullying. And firstly, as far as bullying goes, bullying can be pretty much, defined something, connected with, coercion of somebody that's habitually cruel, overbearing, and especially to smaller or weaker people. And somewhat that is defined online, as far as the definition goes, and including, my own thoughts into it. It's been growing, and I think, I saw something recently which was on Dr. Drew, and they were talking about this, and this is getting, obviously, an infamous, situation. I'm sure a lot of you had heard about Rebecca, I believe Sedwick, and she had jumped from a tower in Florida, September 9th or 10th. I've looked online, I'm getting two different dates for whatever reason on that. And, apparently this was a result, or at least the contributing factor was cyberbullying, which led to her demise, unfortunately sad but true. And, cyberbullying is obviously, this new, innovative, revolutionary way of bullying somebody, and this could be, some kind of, form, obviously cyberbullying connected with the internet or something similar, which statements are made which could, to be to someone's detriment, harassing statements, persistent in a persistent malicious fashion. This could include things connected with defamation of character, slanderous lies, and things of that nature. And this is something that really, I think, is at a point where it needs to be addressed. I don't think people can underestimate the proliferation or growth of this, of this cruel, horrible, what I consider, is a crime. Some people will just say it's, morally wrong, and not a, it might not be a legal crime technically in a lot of ways. Cyber stalking may be a legal crime. But I do believe that bullying really should be perceived as a crime, and look at what this this led to. And I'm sure this isn't the only time somebody had committed suicide where at least bullying was a contributing factor. So I'm sure there's been more incidents other than this. Obviously, this one has just gained prominence. It's become an infamous case. And what I'd like to, first, talk about, I want to give some stats on this. And according to bullying statistics.org, reported roughly it stated 15% of students who were playing hooky and weren't going to school was because they were fearful of being bullied. So that's roughly like 1 in 7. That's a pretty alarming stat, I believe. Also, 282,000 approximately per month have, in high schools, have reportedly being attacked, by somebody, and which comes to nearly 3.4 million per year. It's like 3,384,000 approximately per year, and that is a very inordinate and alarming amount right there. According to statisticbrain.com, 37% of teens have reported being bullied in school. 20%, or at least have made, 37% of teens have reported being bullied in school. 20%, made fun of, ridiculed by a bully. 20% have stated they've been physically bullied. California and New York have respectively have the highest level of bullying. Now, I don't know, to elaborate and expound on that number, I don't know if that's it didn't really say on the site, at least where I looked, whether that's by the total number of bullying incidents, or is this by percentage, percentage of the population. My feeling is that it's probably the base number, considering that California and New York are two of the bigger states as far as population goes. But however they came to those rankings, New York and being in there, it doesn't shock me. I'm from New York originally, and I had some experience in school, not necessarily physically coerced, bullying, but I've had some harassment, that went on for different years, so I can really relate to what, to that number being on there, being one of the, the top two in as far as the bullying incidents goes. And they said, according to the same website, statisticbrain.com, that 29% of victims that had reported bullying to someone at school. So that means that 71% are not reporting, and that's a problem because, this persistent bullying can go on for a long time for these people if they can't be assertive and stand up for, what's right. Now the thing is, a lot of I think people, the students feel maybe they don't have the confidence in school administration or somebody in the school to do anything about this if they make the report, or they don't feel that it's going to be beneficial to them by making a report on this. I could kind of empathize with that in a way, because when I had, there was certain ridiculing and, verbal coercion going on in school when I was in high school, the teachers did really very little or anything to intervene or put a stop to it. So I can kind of empathize with this in a way. What needs to be done is people need to speak up more, and they need to go, to their school, principal, whatever, however many people it takes, so they can get somebody to maybe do something about it. Now, worst case scenarios, yes, you can fight back if, self-defense, but that's a last resort. And a lot of people, if they're being bullied, it's a lot of times it is by somebody that's bigger, bigger and stronger than that person. And even, with some fighting technique, maybe they feel they just can't, win in a physical confrontation. So the bullying, therefore it may persist. Something else I want to go back to. I want to go back to the Rebecca Sedwick situation. Now, many of you heard that the mother of one of the girls that had apparently had been, at least was accused of harassing, bullying, Rebecca. One of the mothers is actually had been arrested recently, and ironically enough, for some kind of violence inflicted on a couple children. And somebody prominent in that case had stated, "No, the apple don't fall far from the tree." I'm thinking, no, really? No, I mean, I can't say 100% that that's the reason, but it does seem kind of odd that the mother, obviously may have some similar characteristics that way, as in relation to her child. So, anyway, another thing I want to touch up on this is that, talk about, I've been watching, Dr. Drew fairly religiously, and a lot of things that are stated on there I do agree with. I mean, I'm enamored with the show. I think, him and the guests on there, the Behavior Bureau, they touch up on a lot of good points. But what Dr. Drew had stated on the show was that a lot of this, or, he feels that this is because, the bullying occurs from being, traumatized. Maybe that's something due to some trauma they experienced when they were younger. Well, in certain cases that may be true, but to expound on it, there's really, I think there is a lot more to it than that. That's not, I don't think you could put it all on just that alone. In other cases, children are very impressionable. They could pick up things from, from their contemporaries, from their peers, from other people. They could see things on television, in a video game. This is something They could be things that they've witnessed that is, obviously caused, this. So to just put this, you can't put it. I'm not saying he did, but from watching that, that segment on Dr. Drew, it seemed like he was emphasizing that was a very strong, at least a very strong reason for a lot of the bullying incidents. But we have to, I understand the parents. They want to give them certain, accountability for this going on, for bullying incidents, and a lot of that could be true in a lot of cases. But at the same time, bullying can be stopped, if the teachers and principals or administration in school is not doing enough to stop this and they're cognizant of it, they're accountable as well. Contemporaries can be accountable, the person's friends. If the person has, if he or she really has a good friend, the friend will at the very least be assertive and speak up about what's going on to their friend in terms of bullying, whether it's cyberbullying, physical, or both. And if they don't speak up, then you can't, it's like you really can't just put it all on the on the parent, because there's accountability in other areas as well. Also, let's take a parent that might be debilitated somewhat and not have all their faculties, working at 100%. A lot of times the parent, and I know it's very remote and isolated, there can be examples where the parent doesn't really have a lot of ability to do something about, maybe an incident, even if it is reported to him or her. So, in those examples, I think we can say that, the parents, and a lot of times do play a vital role in accountability, but it's not, you can't put it all on the parents. Some children can be very well at guising, their, what's going on with them. Not all children are necessarily going to show the certain characteristics or tendencies of a person that is being bullied. People, kids can be very smart. They could be deceptive. So, but if there are, what I would suggest is, I am not a parent myself, but I would say, obviously for the parents out there, to really, kind of, during, especially like middle school, high school years, get with the children and stay on them in a sense, and be able to, periodically check on, them and see that they're, acting the same as they have in the past, and, take note, even if they're, there might be something blatant like a bruise or something on the child, as a result of actual physical bullying. And they talk about, monitoring a child's activities online. Now, yes, there could be some parental controls they could use online and for the TV, but at the same time, it's not going to be such where a parent can monitor or put surveillance on a child 24/7. We're in this cyber internet age where there is just such immense amount of activity online by whoever, by children and whoever it may be, that you can't. It's almost literally impossible to scrutinize every single moment and action that is done online. And it's just a thing where there's other ways of looking at some of this too, is that, okay, the person that's being bullied I've talked a little bit about, but the person that's doing the bullying, now, obviously, if there's something like that going on and the child is in a gang, that could be a warning sign for the parent right there. And what about looking into the children that are actually committing the acts of bullying? Maybe the parents really need to kind of watch on their kids and make sure they're not involved in these sort of gang-related things, which could escalate and lead to to bullying, to volatile acts committed on a person, which could include a form of bullying one way or another. The thing is, and it's just there's so many little nuances with this. I could go on, for a while on this, and it's just a shame that that this bullying, cyberbullying, and bullying in general has become such a prodigious, kind of problem that just seems like it's one of those things that you can't really just snap your fingers and make go away. There's ways to diminish it, but I believe, but there's going to be, considering the enormity of this and all the bullying activities that take place on a regular basis, it makes it very difficult to stop. And what I believe is if people, don't, whether you're a bystander or a victim, you're somebody that can help out and be, do something advantageous to help somebody that's being bullied, don't take a blind eye. Please don't just turn your back. Do something about it. Make a report. No one says anybody necessarily has to go out and get into a physical confrontation or altercation with somebody. It's just about speaking up and going to the right people and addressing the situation. Don't, because, I understand there's some people that think by doing something or, reporting it won't do any good. But if you don't say anything, then you might not have a chance of making the persistent actions cease or come to a halt. I think in some cases it's that the children that are being bullied might be intimidated and think of some kind of repercussions, especially physical, maybe, that could happen to them if they make a report. But like I said, I still believe, I'm a firm believer that, you can't procrastinate in terms of reporting this kind of stuff. It needs to be done, and just by not, saying anything and acting oblivious, that's obviously not, the answer to something like this. I understand there was something that I had seen. Like I said, I've been watching, Dr. Drew fairly religiously, and it's just important to know that, there is psychology, and I understand there's a psychological element and aspect to a lot of this, but there's just, there is more than just, that, and this is, it's just a shame when I look back at the Rebecca Sedwick case, and that there was, the relentless, cyberbullying where she had to endure. I believe there was even a picture of her taken by the railroad tracks where she was kind of, hitting, maybe through the photo, that she was indeed going to, to kill herself. So this was something that was, premeditated, I believe, well before she actually committed the act. And I mean, it's just a terrible, devastating thing and terrible tragedy that took place with this. And the thing that I wanted to get on is just, again, to make sure, if someone's a parent, all teachers out there, principals, people that are part of faculties at schools, to really pay a little bit more attention to these kind of actions, and make sure that you don't hesitate at all. Do not, think, well, I need to verify this, I need to check this. You see some kind of, punching going on, or somebody even talking about being cyberbullied, find out about it and have the person elaborate on what's actually transpiring. One last thing, I know sometimes, what's sad is that in some cases, I think fighting, obviously, resorting to physical violence is worst case scenario and last resort. Sometimes people don't have any choice. If this bully, is not much bigger than the other person, then the person may be able to stand up and defend him or herself. But I understand by bullying, it's usually somebody that's, good amount bigger or stronger than the other person. I understand that, a person can take self-defense classes, and defend his or herself, and I'm all for that. But obviously, as a last resort or a worst case scenario in these situations. And I want to get back to, I like how, somebody will, the woman, Vivian Vosberg, the woman that's the parent of that girl, that was been accused, one of the girls that had been accused of bullying, Rebecca Sedwick. Now she states that the computer, is standing up for her child, and that the computer was hacked or something, and that's where these messages came from, the bullying messages. And I'm thinking, really, you got to be kidding me with that one. It would have been nice to at least get some acknowledgement. If someone had the audacity to say something like that, it's just unbelievable. And one thing I wanted to get on before I head out is that a number of you may have heard of this person. There's a guy by the name of Danny Savalos, and he is a regular on the Dr. Drew show on HLN, regular guest in the Behavior Bureau. He's a criminal defense attorney, and he makes a lot of appearances on CNN. He might be like a legal, correspondent or analyst or something on that show. But he stated that, that bullying is not, really, it's not technically a crime, and he had said that, it's not something where we can definitely say that it's not, he stated somehow, I don't know if he stated, intimated that, it's not something that we can, that it's a moral crime as far as the bullying. Not necessarily cyber stalking, I believe, is a crime, but he's saying isolating bullying. I understand that point. And he said something about, if you outlaw bullying, you might as well outlaw the laws of gravity. Well, maybe it's time to put some anti-gravity plates on some people then. I'm only kidding. But, he says that it's it's not technically a crime. Well, what I would say is, what? Maybe it should be. Well, people, that will conclude this YouTube segment on bullying. And until next time, people, stay well.